Earnestly podcast here. He's back. I think the third time this year on the pod, Rob.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, third time in actually about 3 months.
Yeah.
You gone from I think you were on like 2 years ago, and then like all of a sudden like you one of our frequent flyers now on the
All
pod.
right. That's good to hear. It's better than the opposite.
Yeah, you just got back from the AEW show.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah.
it?
They were in Baltimore, which is about 20 minutes from where I live. I live in Columbia, Maryland, so Baltimore is about 20 minutes away. So I figured, why not?
That's cool. They were here last week actually. Down here. I know my co-host went to the show. I decided to go last minute because the other obligations and stuff. But yeah, AW shows. I've been to AW show. I went to the first AW show post pandemic, the first one with crowds.
Mm-hmm.
That was a night I think Malachi Black debuted. Showed up for the first time out of nowhere. No one knew he was actually on the way out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was kind of cool actually. It was a fun time actually. Fun time.
Because I went back in November also.
So you ain't got me Trump 2-1. Jeez.
Yeah. Because look, I mean, because if they if when they come to Baltimore again, it's really close and convenient. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So I go. I mean,
Yeah, that's awesome though. That's cool. So what triggered this episode today? Last week we were talking a little bit of shit. Not a lot, a little bit of shit. You are actually some people may not know this. Unless you follow you on social media, you're a big New York Knicks fan.
yes, have been for some time now.
Yeah.
And been through a lot of heartache and disappointment.
Ain't that the truth?
But here we are.
I think that's an understatement at this point.
Yeah. So I started like seriously watching the NBA around 1990. Like I mean, I would watch it here and there before that.
Yeah.
But I started seriously watching all religiously like around 1990.
Yeah.
And I grew up outside of DC, and I was born in New York, grew up outside of DC. I was like, well, who should I root for here? And I said, well, I have a nice little combination here. Patrick Ewing, who I saw watched at Georgetown, happens to play for the New York Knicks. So, he's from, he played nearby. I watched him when his whole college career, and he happens to be playing for the team from where I was born. So I figured, okay, well, that sounds like a nice combination. We'll do that. And that was a year or two before Riley came on as coach.
Yeah.
And man, those years, I mean, they went to war with Chicago. And
Yeah.
I mean, and I grew to hate Phil Jackson. I grew to hate Reggie Miller.
Yeah. It's complicated because for me, and I actually just explained this on my last podcast I just dropped yesterday. That so I'm born in Brooklyn, first off.
No, okay.
And you probably noticed now in the time we've been friends now, I'm actually a New York sports guy myself. I'm actually, football I'm a Giants fan, hockey I'm Rangers, baseball I'm Mets.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where it ends for me. I've been a Heat fan for 34 years.
Oh wow.
Pretty much since second year of existence. Now, that being said, this is what a complication for me happens. I explained in the podcast. The Heat weren't that good for the first like 7 years of existence. Okay, they were at best mediocre.
I remember Ronnie Cycli and Glenn Rice.
Correct. Well, Glenn Rice is the reason I became a fan in the first place. Glenn Rice is the reason I became a fan. So obviously the Heat were never contending for titles at that time. This is pre Pat Riley. I mean, obviously. And I hated the Bulls as a kid. I hated the Bulls myself. I hated Jordan and Pippen and Phil Jackson. I actually liked Patrick Ewing a lot. So back then, even though I was a Heat fan first, because he was never competing for titles, if the Knicks were in position to compete for titles, I root for the Knicks. So when the Knicks, the Bulls played their series in 92, 93, 94, I obviously rooted for the Knicks. When they played the Pacers, same thing too. So I wanted Ewing to get a title. I actually to this day still feel terrible he didn't win 94.
Yeah, man.
The '94 finals to me is still hard
Oh,
for him, really, to be honest with you. So then the Heat Knicks rivalry didn't ratchet up until the late '90s. Once Riley left New York to come to Miami, and
yeah.
once that happened, that's where the friction started with the Knicks fans and whatnot. Now, to be fair, I still didn't mind the Knicks. I was one of those Heat fans hating the Knicks. My hatred, quote unquote, only really started to happen when the way they kicked out Ewing out the door.
And see, look, and honestly, I checked out for a while when they did
Yeah,
that because I thought
yeah,
I was like, no, you don't do that, man, like that.
right. And that bothered me, and it's bothered me to this day. It still bothers me. So but it's weird for me because I explained this in the last episode too. Because a lot of those Knicks fans I break bread with in the fall. A lot of those Knicks fans are Giants fans. I got a lot of friends of mine who are diehard Giant fans, but we divide because of basketball. So it's one of those things where I can only hate you so much because come September we root for Daniel Jones and the company.
Yeah,
So it's one of those things. It's complicated, slightly complicated anyway for me.
because for me, I became a Washington football fan because when I started watching the NFL it was the year that the then Redskins went to the Super Bowl and they won with John Riggins.
83,
Eight
83,
is 80 was
82,
82 season. The game was
82
in
season.
80,
Right.
and man, there was like that whole town was just in love with that team and those guys, and they were like that. It was like that through the whole Joe Gibbs first
Yeah.
run. I mean,
And by the
and
way, Joe Gibbs probably still one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL history.
yeah, and I will. I know people will just give it to Belichick and all that now, but I will still go to bat for Joe Gibbs.
I would too.
He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks.
Yep.
None, none
And
of
none of them
whom
are
were
heralded.
none of them in the Hall of Fame. Uh,
Heisman, Mark Whippen, and Doug
yep,
Williams.
yep. I mean, the only one who really had a chance was if Theismann. Theismann's the all-time leading passer for the team.
Still?
Yeah, because that man, we don't keep him long, man.
No, that's right.
um, and that's the thing. If he had okay, so because when he came in, like Sonny Jurgensen and Billy Kilmer were both there, and they both hated his guts. So
Yeah.
they kind of made a little pledge that we're going to play as good as we possibly can to keep him on the bench. And so he lost a few years on the front end because of that. And then of course, Lawrence Taylor put an end to him.
Yeah.
So he, 2 or 3 years either on the front or on the back end, he would have gotten enough. His numbers would have gotten him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree.
But he came up, but he was just short. But he won the Super Bowl. He got an MVP. Um, and then Rippon wasn't there very long.
No.
He was about 5 years. Of course, we got Doug was at the tail end of his career. So
And Doug wasn't even a starting quarterback of that team. It was Jay Schrader.
yeah, and um, but to me, you can't. I mean, I can't see anybody doing what Gibbs did during
No.
that era.
No. No, he's
And
he's underrated.
yeah, and when they call people coaching geniuses or whatever, I mean the stuff that he came up with as far as plays and how I mean it was actually pretty simple. I mean they only ran a handful of plays, but they would switch, but with stuff all they did with the formations and all that stuff, and then also he was a pass happy coach at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He came from Don Coryell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
they're throwing the ball all over the field, and so he came in, and that's what he started out doing that. And they started out like 0-5, and then he looked at what they said. Well, we have a big offensive line, and we have John Riggins, and so we're gonna do that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and I mean, not that I mean the passing offense was putting up a lot of points and all that, but they were getting in shootouts and losing.
Yeah.
So he looked at it, well, we got John Riggins, we got the Hogs, so we're going to do that instead. And a lot of these offensive genius head coaches, they never want to do that. they want to, like Mike Martz, he wants to keep throwing the ball 40 times, no matter how it's working out for him, and because they just know if we just keep throwing it's gonna, it's gonna work eventually.
Well, it does make sense though. I mean, you're born in Maryland too, right?
I was born in New York. I
Oh, you're
moved,
born in New York though. Okay, okay.
yeah. So I was, Staten Island, man, Staten Island Hospital.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, that makes sense now. Okay, so that's where the Knicks thing really comes from. It's from the
Yeah.
birth. Okay, that makes sense.
So my
Yeah,
dad was stationed. I don't know if it was you heard of Governor's Island?
Governor Allen.
Yeah, it used to be a Coast Guard base up there.
I've heard of it. Yes.
Well, it's not. I don't know what it is now. It's not a base anymore, but
Mm.
it was when I was born. It was a Coast Guard base. My dad was in the Coast Guard, and so he was stationed there. And I was born in Staten Island Hospital,
Right.
and we lived. So a few years after, I think when I was 5, we moved down here to Maryland.
Okay. Okay.
So I know I'm New York enough to claim it, but I don't pretend that I don't pretend to be a native or anything like that. I'm not gonna be out here perpetrating.
That's funny though, because like with me living in Florida, I'm born in New York and I lived there 9 years, but I moved here at 9 years old. So I was raised in Florida. You think about it. I mean, I went to middle school, high school down here, and whatever. But the South Florida teams, um, outside the Heat, of course, because the Heat are my favorite franchise of all time. The other teams have naturally through the years started to grow on me. Like, I'm a Giants fan first, but I root for the Dolphins as well too. You know what I mean? The Dolphins
Mhm.
are my number 2 team. Now, when they play the Giants, obviously I'm rooting for.
Mhm.
Same with the Panthers in hockey. The Rangers are not around. Like Rangers are gone in the playoffs now. I root for the Panthers now.
Mhm.
And then like with the Marlins to some degree. The Mets are when the Mets aren't in the playoffs or whatever. I root for the Marlins.
Now the baseball thing was funny here, man, because
Yeah.
all right, we had the Orioles,
Right.
and so well, before the Orioles, I mean, from back in the '70s, I think the Senators were still there, and they moved.
Right.
That was before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So they showed the Orioles games where I lived, and we all were like, okay, this is good. We'll watch the Orioles, and Cal Ripken, Eddie Murray, and we all were, we were on board, no problem. And the funny thing is because they tried when the Colts left Baltimore, they tried showing the NFL tried showing like Redskins games in Baltimore to try and just say, okay, well, there's this team down the road, you can just watch them now. And Baltimore, they rejected it. They said, hell no. They refused. Okay. And so,
Yeah.
which was actually the right move because they wouldn't, if they had just accepted it, they wouldn't have the Ravens right now.
That's true.
So they did the right thing. They wholesale rejected, Washington football up there in Baltimore, and they basically sat on their hands until they were able to, to get a team back there.
Well, given how inept the Washington Commanders have been / former Redskins former football team have been for the last 32 years, has there been moments where you've considered leaving Washington and trying a new team, maybe the Ravens, since they're in your area?
No, well, because what happened to me is I just started checking out on the NFL.
Okay.
That's what happened with me. I just started kind of just just kind of losing my interest in the NFL. Because it's I devoted too much to them, and also, I mean, I was if you were there for those Super Bowl years with Gibbs, there's no way you can just say, nah. you
Yeah.
know, I mean, like now I totally understand. Younger people just not doing it,
Yeah.
but if you were there for those years and you witnessed it firsthand, then I mean, you can't. No, you can't just put that aside and act like it didn't happen.
Yes, it's
You
different
know,
level of fandom there. I mean, you got to see 3 Super Bowls in the span of
yeah,
like span of 5 years.
yeah, and so it's just I think a lot of people here, we just people in in my generation, a lot of us just checked out, man,
Mm-hmm.
or because the attendance went down, and it's not like people didn't start watching the Ravens, in big numbers or anything. They just I mean, some people just did watch the NFL still, But as far as like getting diehard for a team, a lot of people were just like, whatever,
And yet it amazes me that this team was always like ranked like number one, number two, and most like richest franchise in sports. And it boggled my mind as bad as they were.
You got me. I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess because location, I don't know. I really don't know
Weird.
how. I don't because the attendance has not been good for a good while. Um, Even now, it got to the point where the local TV ratings even dipped because people were just giving up, man. And um, I mean, yes, I never quite understood that. And Snyder was just the worst.
Wait, yeah, I would imagine it's coupled with the ineptitude on the field, and then Daniel Snyder on top of that makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah, because I mean, and then like some of the news stories that have come out about him in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
I mean, because for a long time we thought, well, he was just incompetent, but no, he's actually a pretty kind of vile individual.
yeah.
Um,
I think we all sort of suspected that to some degree. Would have smoked this fire kind of thing with him,
yeah, now I guess I thought he was a rich jerk,
Yeah,
but I mean they were running like basically a sexual harassment den in the
yeah,
front office, and they were. I mean, to say they were well, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say they were pimping out the cheerleaders.
no,
I mean, because they were. I mean, because they were basically sending them out to entertain people in certain like venues and whatnot that were just like, okay, that's real suspect.
yeah,
Um, so it was just it was a mess. And so we want, yeah, I mean, we're glad that this sale is becoming final.
yeah.
And whoever, I mean, and you can't do any worse than him because
I mean, he really set the bar.
yes, I mean, and then hiring,
I mean, low.
yeah, man, and it's just, oh boy,
To call him the worst owner in sports is actually putting it kindly.
yeah,
He's in the conversation.
because some owners are jerks, but they run the team well. Um, some owners don't run the team well, but they're I guess what you would call a nice
Yeah,
person, for being a billionaire or whatever. But they're not like evil, vile people or anything. They're just some owners are just kind of incompetent at running
he's
the
not doing
team.
the job.
But he's both, and um, man, I mean, and he found just new ways to be incompetent. And good grief,
I thought after like I remember the thing 2 years ago, the stuff with the last 2 summers ago with the stuff with the cheerleaders and all that stuff. I thought that was the end of it, and then that didn't go anywhere. I'm like, wow, this guy's fucking Teflon. But after this year, and we start hearing the pressure about other owners wanting him to get out of the paint because they were getting tired of the image that he had, tarnishing the image of the NFL. I knew once the other owners were going to get involved, then that's what it took to get him out of there. I
yeah. And
mean,
then Jerry was kind of his
well,
blocker.
Jerry, especially Jerry Jones, yeah.
Yeah, Jerry was his blocker for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jerry finally just like, nah, okay.
Now we're good.
Yeah, like whatever happens, happens. So I mean,
So how far are we from the final of the sale now?
um, well, I guess the owners got to vote on it. So
Which
I
they,
mean,
which they will obviously.
yeah, I mean, they're working out the details. So I imagine it'll probably be another few months or something until it's final.
Mm-hmm.
Can't happen soon enough. And
Yeah.
and some people are like, well, man, this sucks. He ran the team into the ground. He gets to walk off with $6 billion, and a lot of us was like, man, we don't care. Just go away. I mean, just go away.
Yeah.
And so it turns out he was even like stealing money.
Yeah.
Which, like, how do you own an NFL team and have financial problems?
Yeah, exactly. Especially the NFL, you print money in that league.
I mean, that's as close to having your own personal ATM
Yeah.
as you can have, and yet the team had, was still I mean, was having financial issues. He'd been I think he'd been sued by some season ticket holders, and because they always acted real funny with like tickets or like and I mean it was I don't know it was just bad all around, and it's I mean I can't wait for him to be gone, and that was the other thing like if you were there for the Gibbs years, the first run, I mean Jack Kent Cook was about as perfect a sports team owner as you could ask for. I mean, he was willing to spend money, and he was smart. He hired good people, and then he only got involved if there was some type of impasse between like Gibbs and the GM Bobby Beathard.
Yeah.
And that and then he always put the mandate down. Like, okay, but you got to better win. You got to win. That's what we're here for. We're not here to be 8-8. We're not here for um. And so to go from Jack Kent Cook to Dan Snyder is just like, oh man.
Well, safe to say that once he's gone, for you personally, it'd be easier to really embrace your fandom again.
Yeah, I mean, I started again. Like I started to get back into it these past couple of years, and because I figured I'm just gonna. I just said, I'm gonna give it a go here, and because hopefully things will turn around, um, and I'm cautiously optimistic right now. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, 'cause I decided to give him another try. So we're back for now.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. Hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Look, it's one step at a time. I mean,
Yeah, you're back in the narcotic. What does Bobani say? The narcotic.
yeah, yeah, man, yep. And same thing with the Knicks, because look, I mean, I checked out on them for a long time because
You checked out after Ewing left, right? You said.
like basically like, the year after they got rid of him, I was just like, okay, because that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And then you know, um, James Dolan's not a great owner either. And
You got a bad run of owners, man. Those teams.
yeah,
You got bad
yeah,
taste in owners, buddy.
yeah, and so at least well, he's not messing things up right now. So
No.
as far as for the Knicks this year, look, I was happy that they won the first round.
Yeah.
If they do win this round, then as far as I'm concerned, this season was a win. Well,
it's a win now, in my opinion. It's a win now.
Yeah, it is honestly because they got past the first round.
Right.
If they get past this round, then as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished. Because I would not expect them; they would not beat either Boston or Philly.
No.
Yeah.
If the Knicks win this round and go to man, Knicks fans. Let me say. I'm not saying you necessarily, but I got to tell you, Knicks fans are fucking thirsty as hell.
Oh, we are, man. Yes, sir. Oh, we are. And you know what? But I mean, the trick is just to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And at least now, I mean, people doing it in kind of a fun way now because you see the videos like outside the Garden after the games now.
Yeah, after the Heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck the Heat. Yeah.
And fuck Trae Young.
Yeah. On one hand, on one hand, I'm like offended by that because I'm like, oh, my team. But on the other hand, I'm like, this is fun. This is a lot. This is why I love sports.
Yeah. I mean. Oh,
but the same, but it's like it goes back to I was telling you earlier about my complication about like people who I'm tight with and those same fans who I break bread with during the fall for football that are Giants fans. I can go so hard. Maybe I could go hard and then peel back during the fall, but it's hard sometimes though because we break bread in September. You know what I mean? But I do. I've gotten more and more chatty on social media this past week. Obviously the Knicks Heat rivalry has been something that's been, romanticized to some degree. Although people forget we met actually 11 years ago in the playoffs too. Also, though the Heat
Yeah.
won it in 5 games, really. And I mean, to be fair, that Knicks team was not beating LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. Stop it. Ain't happening. We can't even call that necessarily a fair matchup. But it's funny to see these the media really romanticize this matchup because I'll say as a Heat fan, the Knicks were a frustrating part of my early adulthood because there were some really good Heat teams there that come into the finals, and New York for some reason just seem to pluck out wins like out of thin air on Game 5 and Game 7s, and like Allen Houston here, like geez.
Yeah, because well, it's funny they romanticize it now because at one point it was like one of the poster children for what's wrong with basketball. Because
Yeah.
that the year that they had the big fight, and
Mhm.
then well,
Wait, big fight? What's big fight? Like how many?
Yeah.
PJ Brown against Charlie Ward or Van Gundy against the world?
I mean, both of those, man. But and honestly, man, the aftermath of that, the first one, that was one of the most like you talking about heartbreak
Mm-hmm.
because they suspended half the team for Game 6, and they suspended the other half of the team for Game 7.
So I got a hot take for you real quick. I got a hot take for you on that Knick team, 97 Knick team. They were up 3-1 going into that Game 5 against
Yes.
Miami.
Yes.
I think that Knick team could have beaten the Bulls.
We all do too, and
I'll come damn close to that beating that Bulls team.
Which is why, and that's why it hurt so much. I mean, that was so deflating.
Yeah,
because Patrick was still,
pretty good.
He was still, yeah. And then that's when we had Starks and Allen Houston. We had Larry Johnson, and I think Oakley might have still been there.
Yeah, I'm still there.
And so we were like too deep all around.
Yeah.
And that was really our best hope to beat them. And then that damn fight happened, and then, like I said, half the roster got suspended for Game 6. The other half got suspended for Game 7, and that just, I mean, we were feeling like this is finally going to be it. We finally got enough guys, and we have, and then to do this, and Chicago's, they were starting to get old, and and we were all set like this is it. This is finally going to be our chance, and then that happened.
Yeah,
and then we didn't even get to play them.
And needless to say, look, if the Heat, let's say that series has stayed normal, no one gets suspended, he lose that series probably in 6 games. They probably win in Game 5, but they lose Game 6.
Well, they were already winning Game 5, so
yeah, they're up big in that game.
Yeah, so that was what, what, you just write it off. You see, say okay.
They lose Game 6 probably, most likely.
Yeah.
So I mean, that people forget how good that 97 Knicks team was. That 97 Knicks team was scary. I've heard people say that Jordan said he was worried about that team. That team actually worried him.
I'm sure they were, and
because they were actually still physical, but more skilled than the early Knicks teams in like 92, 93, 95.
Yeah,
more skilled. So,
oh man, it's just that may have been the biggest disappointment out of all the years because we didn't even get the chance. Like
so 97. Hypothetically, it'll happen earlier. 97, you beat the Bulls in the conference finals. You play Utah in the finals. You can beat Utah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It was just and like that's the one that got away.
Yeah, that's that. People say 93 and no 93. Even though they were up 2-0, I've said for years that Michael Jordan's absolute peak of his entire career was those 4 weeks between Game 3 of the conference finals against New York through the NBA finals in 93 all the way through the finals. Those last 8 games.
And also, look, I mean, in that year, look, it was the conference finals, and we got beat by Chicago. So
yeah.
Whereas that 97 team, again, we didn't. It felt like they took the chance. They took our chance away from us.
Yeah.
It felt like it was taken from us, and we didn't even get a chance to do it.
All took was Charlie Ward and PJ Brown to fuck shit up.
Yep, and because ultimately, look, I could, and of course, it was disappointing to lose to Chicago, in those when they did, but I could still, I mean, you play against the champs in the playoffs and they beat you, okay, fine,
Yeah.
but you don't even get the chance when you don't even get the chance to play them,
Yeah.
and because it got taken away, because had that fight happened in 1984, there'd have been no suspensions.
No.
They would have cleared it all out. I'm like, all right, check ball, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody would have went to the foul line, and especially that late in a blowout game in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, in any previous era, they would have just they would have cleaned it up, and they wouldn't have taken that kind of action. But that's when people were starting to, you know, kind of look at the
Tighten up.
NBA as the you know gangster league or whatever, and
Right.
David Stern freaked out, and I mean, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That I still say this day at the very least that the Knicks team could take the Bulls to 7 games.
Yeah, yeah,
At the very least.
yeah, and man, oh boy. And now the most fun one was when the year that when they played them in the second round and took them to 7 games, because they weren't expecting that.
92.
Yeah, yeah, they weren't expecting that.
That was the Xavier McDaniel team.
Yeah, and see, and they were not expecting that.
No.
They weren't expecting us to come at them like that. And 'cause remember, they won the Knicks won the first game.
Yeah, I remember that game too. I remember that was
Yeah,
you went nuts in that game. Remember that game?
yeah, and then because I remember him in the probably one of the few times I remember the post game media thing, and they were like, well, they were asking him like, well, you know, what went wrong with the Bulls and all that. He was like, no, 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 y'all need to give us some credit.
Yeah.
And he rarely like snapped at the reporters or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was like the one time he was like, no, 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 don't hit us with that. What did they do wrong?
Yeah. No, I think in that series, I think it was game 3 that I think is the one of you guys that got away because you won game 4 in a
Yeah,
blowout. Game 5 obviously went at home. Game 6 you went home,
yeah,
but game 3 I think was the game that had you won game 3 because that game was tight.
yeah,
And then once Jordan hit that layup where he got hacked and he started beefing at might have been Ewing or McDaniel on the floor, you know,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, that was a series that was the moment in the series where like, yeah, the Bulls might Knicks might have a chance still, but the Bulls that's the game that you probably should have gotten was like game 3.
Because that was a series when that's when Starks made himself known,
Yep,
and I think
that was
Anthony Mason.
yeah, that was year 1 of Pat Riley, year 1.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
And man, and again, nobody expected that, and so to me that was the most out of all the series they had. To me, that was the most fun one because yeah, it was just. I mean, again, like they didn't expect it, and they woke up and they were in a fight, and they had to, and it took everything they had to get out of that.
one last Knicks thing. Um, is the most heartbreaking loss for you the finger roll that missed in '95?
Um, no, for me, actually, it was. It's between 2 games. It's of course, well, Game 7 against Houston, and that's one where Starks was 2 for 18, and
Yeah, that game
Riley
was
just would not
just
take him out of the game.
yeah.
And
Riley was
look,
stubborn as hell, dude.
yeah,
He
and
was stubborn as hell.
Starks was feast or famine,
Mm-hmm.
and those nights where he was off, you just need to take him out
Yeah.
and just say, okay, next time. Um, and Riley wouldn't take him out, and he just kept missing and kept missing and kept missing. So that, and then the Charles Smith game,
Oh God. Game 5
because
of the
that was
conference
the
finals,
one.
93.
That was Game 5. Game 5 at home, and that was the whole reason. They had the best record in the East, and
Mm-hmm.
they put all that effort into getting the best record in the East, so that they could get Game 5 and Game 7 at home. And they had
I
Game 5 at home, and that soft bitch, and I'm just gonna say it, got his shot blocked like 5 times, and then they stole the ball from him.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the series. Even though they still
Yep.
play more games,
Oh, they
but
got
that was
game
the
six.
end of the
Yeah,
series.
they were done game 6.
Yeah.
That game. So I was 13. That game happened. I was grounded,
Oh.
but I was somehow able to sneak out, and watch the game late at night. Like sneak out of my room and watch it in the living room. My mom was asleep, and I stuck at the living room and watched the game. I was that diehard as a kid. Even at 13 years old, I had to watch my basketball games. And seeing that shit's like, oh my god, this is terrible. This is terrible.
Man.
You know,
Yeah,
I felt bad. I felt bad. I felt bad.
yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like what? Because I wanted to trade him immediately. I was like,
Yeah,
this guy stinks.
yeah. He was and he was a big acquisition back then too. He was actually your big piece. That
Yeah,
was the
and
okay. Well, Big Daniel's gone, so that was your okay. This is the piece we're gonna put it over the top in Chicago in the East.
yeah, and
He's
dude
blocked
was
5 times
6'10", played like he was 5'10".
for real, dude. For real, for real. What else here? I have in the docket. You actually want to add this to the show today. They announced the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees
Yeah,
today officially. Seven
yeah,
artists got inducted or going to be inducted. I think the ceremonies went in it used to be March. It used to be March before.
yeah. This is late this year. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
I don't know,
I
but
remember it being
so the 7 artists: Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, George Michael, Willie Nelson, Rage Against the Machine, and the Spinners. Anyone shocked you here?
Okay. I was pleasantly surprised at Missy Elliott because I just didn't think they would vote for her.
Not only that, she's first ballot.
Yeah, like I did not think they would. I did not think they would vote for her.
Apparently, the last couple hip hop artists that got in the first ballot. Jay-Z, her, and someone else got in the first ballot also too recently. It was in Wu-Tang or somebody else.
But because now the voting board has changed a little bit because actually I was Questlove from the Roots he's one of the people on the
As you should. He knows his music.
yeah, and so and he's talked about, and he has like his own podcast. Actually, it's pretty good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called
check it out.
Questlove Supreme, and he talks to all different kinds of people. A lot of mostly music artists, of course, but
Right, of course.
but it's really good, and he's really good at interviewing and really good at and so he's talked about a lot of that, and like going through the process of getting certain people to vote different, or getting you know artists considered that previously would not have been. um and so, but still, I thought it was nice to see her nominated, or to see her on the ballot, but I did not think they were going to, then definitely not first ballot. So I'm so happy for that, because because I thought, just she's one of those artists that it would be real, if you don't really pay attention, it'd be real easy to just be like, just to not know what to do with her.
Of course.
She's just so unique with everything she did. But you know, yeah, to me, that is the one to be the most happy about. That
No,
one, because
I'm with you in that. And the thing is, as big as she was in the late '90s, early 2000s, she can get easily lost in the shuffle because of so much of the other females that came behind her in the last 15, 20 years. Nicki Minaj and Cardi B and some of these rappers that have come behind her, that it's easy to forget her impact.
yeah, because it's weird, because she was so huge
So different
for that period of time, and then she like just completely just almost vanished.
by choice, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the circumstances, you know, but it is. I mean, I wasn't expecting her to get in this early.
No, I'm surprised actually. I'm pleasantly surprised. Should I say?
Yeah.
Um, Rage got in. I think it's the fifth opportunity to get in finally.
Okay, and they
Very happy.
well,
Very happy. Very
because
happy. I'm a huge Rage fan, of course. So
yeah, and so of course I'm now because I guess they had to clear out some people first because you know Green Day got in a few years ago,
yeah,
and then Foo Fighters got in last year, and then Chili Peppers got in last year. So I
yeah,
guess they had some of their contemporaries that were kind of in line ahead of them,
yeah.
and those people have all gotten in now. So
Is there process similar to baseballs? Is it a percentage?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how exactly it works.
Mm,
Um, but it's I mean, there are some years where it's where you look at who got it and it's like really,
right. George Michael surprised it took this long to get in. Honestly.
yeah, yeah, same here. I figured he would have gotten in already.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with this because like there are people who you look at them as like, wait a minute, they just got in now.
Yeah. The Spinners being one of those.
Yeah,
Kate Bush to some degree. Yeah. I
and I
mean,
was a little bit surprised by the Spinners because they're one of those groups like they're not the Temptations or the Four
right.
Tops, but they're not the group that everybody knew. Right, so I thought they were one of those groups that might just get kind of forever lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Yeah. And Willie Nelson.
Hey,
Finally
I
is
mean,
getting.
exactly. That's a prime example. Like now, like
Yeah.
really, like what took y'all so
At least
long?
at least they're still alive. Thank God, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, ridiculous. Yeah, a couple other like categories like musical influence award. Um, DJ Cool, Link Ray got in for that. You have the musical excellence award, Shaka Khan, Al Cooper, and Bernie Taupin.
and now Bernie Taupin is basically Elton John's other half.
Right. Right.
So I mean, there's no Elton John without Bernie Taupin.
It's
So
correct. Yes, yes. Shaka Khan, of course, as a music excellence award, and then Don Cornelius, of course, famously known as the host of Soul Train.
yeah,
That's
and he's another one. Should have been in there. A lot of it's funny because when I was in college, I took a course on like history of rock and roll music, and
mm,
the degree to which things were segregated as far
yeah,
as who got to go on what platforms. Um, so Don Cornelius, by creating Soul Train, and it was one of those things where it's like there's certain, if you weren't Motown, you weren't getting on American Bandstand,
yeah,
or if you weren't Motown, you weren't getting on like the main top 40 radio or whatever. And so Soul Train was for black artists who were not Motown, basically, or who were not like the kind of instant crossover type of artists. And so a lot of people got that. That's where they got their exposure for many years. And it's funny because like when I was a kid and during the 80s, that's when like the radio segregation like it really kicked in
hmm
then. I mean, because it became a two-way street.
right,
It's like when I was a kid, because I mean, during the 80s, like the only white artist that got played on because that's when you started to really have, white radio stations and black radio stations. And so on the white stations, Michael Jackson and Prince got played, and that was it.
yeah,
And then conversely on the black stations, um, Madonna, they played Madonna, they would play George Michael.
hmm
There are a few other people, but same thing. Like, or you had, or a white artist had to make a song that sounded like a quote unquote black song, like some of the Phil Collins stuff,
of
or
course, yeah,
right. I mean, you had to make something right. I mean, and so I mean, Don Cornelius, he was, Soul Train was one of the platforms that really gave a lot of black artists their exposure, and then One person I hope gets in, if he's not in for some category already, Donnie Simpson should get in there because um, when he was on, when BET started, Donnie Simpson Video Soul did kind of
Mm-hmm.
the same thing as far as music videos. A lot of black artists who had zero chance of getting on MTV
Yeah.
got played on BET, and look, Donnie Simpson's local here, but he's another guy that if he's not, yeah, he should get in there for something. They should find some way to get him in the Hall of Fame because he deserves it also.
Yeah, Don Cornelius, by the way, his story is very tragic.
Oh yeah,
Very
it is.
tragic.
I've heard. I haven't heard all. I've heard just a few little tidbits here and there. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, committed suicide.
Yeah.
He killed
I
himself.
mean, yeah.
I mean, he got a morbid here, of course, but
Yeah.
but that guy's a legend, though. That guy is. I mean, obviously, I say Black America, but just even America as a whole, because Soul Train ended up being not just a black show, it ended up being where even a lot of whites are embracing that show through the years as it trailed on through the decades.
Yeah.
Legacy,
And,
Soul Train legacy is amazing. It really is.
it is. And now, I mean, like, if there's a legacy of that going on now, so LL Cool J got together with some people, and they made there's a station on Sirius, it's called Rock the Bells Radio, and they
Mm-hmm.
play a lot of the 80s, 90s rap music. And it's important because, like, Chuck D used to go on about this all the time, saying that basically the rap doesn't, there was no classic rock station for rap music.
Right.
And classic rock became a thing because the kids who grew up listening to the Beatles and all that grew up to become station managers and record executives and whatnot. And so, I mean, classic rock was kind of born as a way for basically those people to keep their music going.
Yeah.
And and so, like, what so Chuck D has often been saying that, well, rap needed something like that, so that 40-year-old rappers are not just forgotten, right?
Right. All right. Well, last thing we got you out of here.
All right.
This week there is a WWE Premier Live event. It is Backlash. By the way, thank God it's not called WrestleMania Backlash. Thank God.
Yeah, that was
Good
kind of
God.
dumb. Yeah.
I know why he did it, trying to keep the theme of the rematches, but no, the Backlash. I think the Backlash name itself has enough name value to hang on its own.
Yeah.
I mean, first off, arguably my favorite Rock Austin match of all time is that Backlash 1999.
Yeah.
That was a rematch after Mania 15.
Because the Mania, that Mania was not very good.
Oh God, but I'll say I've said this for a long time. And I'll say it again. Mania 19 is better than Mania 17, which is better than Mania 15. Rock Austin trilogy.
I'm still not. I'm still kind of. I don't know. I prefer 17.
Yeah.
The
19. Ending though. The ending was an issue for you
though. It was. It was. I mean, it was. You know what though. But see, I wasn't opposed to doing the heel turn for Austin because. I mean, the logic behind it was we need to do this before it gets. I mean, well, the logic behind it was that they've been doing this Austin McMahon thing for years, for like 2 or 3 years at that point, and that you can't do it forever. So, like, the last trick, is to have them join forces, right? And so I thought it was, I mean, it made sense to try, to at least try it. And that was one of the few times I was legit shocked at that point, and then also, legit just like pissed, like, in the right way, right? Not pissed like why did they book this shit, but just shocked and pissed that he joined it with evil Mr. McMahon.
I'll say this though, like I wasn't a fan of the ending of that match, but I'm grateful that it happened because I actually love Austin's run that year.
It was really good.
As a heel, it was funny as hell.
It was.
It was another that started the whole what character, the whole what that started up the whole the comedy, him doing the guitar and him and Angle going. That's what started all that. And to me, I don't know if I ever say it's better than Austin, badass, DTA character, but Austin 2001 for me was actually a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It was, and then also, I mean, he kind of turned back the clock on his ring work also.
Yeah, he did. He did.
And but I mean, it's just the people who write the history books have basically decided that it was a bad idea, and I mean, again, like you said, there was a lot of entertaining stuff then, and it wasn't his fault that they booked the invasion like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, that whole, and I think also that this is what happens also when you become a monopoly. At that point, WCW was eaten up by WE. So I mean, it is what it is. But Austin, I actually enjoyed that Austin heel run and that was actually his longest title reign ever too, for the record. People forget that.
Yeah,
6 months. So, all right, 7 matches. Of course, I love these simple 3.5 hour cards. No need to overstuff it with throwaways. Do it as you need to. First match, you have the San Juan street fight between Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
Yeah. So I think he Bad Bunny's got. There's no way he doesn't win this. It's just a matter of what type of. I mean, he's not going to beat Damian Priest straight up. So I think it's a question of just how convoluted circumstances are you going to create for him to win.
I don't see this being a clean match at all. I see
hell no.
Judgment Day get involved in this, and maybe Bad Bunny's people get involved in this too as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be run-ins. Yeah, there's gonna be a million run-ins, and God knows what. And I mean, and I mean, as long as it's entertaining, and but I think he's gonna win this because. Yeah, he's got to win. You can't do all of it. You can't have him host the show and do this. And
exactly. That makes no sense at all. That makes no sense at all. We got the Raw Women's Championship between Bianca Belair and Io Sky.
Well, we know how that's going.
Feels like a throwaway. I feel like this match is a step towards something bigger.
It could be. We'll see. Yeah, I've been very critical of how they've been booking the women's division. And I've been the way they've been doing stuff with Bianca. I've been kind of critical of that because it just seems like they're just sending her out there to have matches. Now they're both going to SmackDown, so yes, this could go further. I guess. Well, I'll believe it when I see it because, I mean, they could have done things with her and Asuka in such a way to they could have gotten more out of it.
Yeah.
And then they could have, every time she wrestled Bayley, she just beat Bayley flat dead. 1, 2, 3.
I mean, they are great matches though.
Yeah, they are. But I think it really took some steam out of the whole damage control thing when she beat basically all 3 of them by herself.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, Bianca won this match. That's not even a conversation.
Yeah.
All right, triple threat match between Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, and Bronson Reed.
Okay, we know Bronson Reed's not winning because he's going to Raw. Okay,
right.
Right. So it's just, do you want? I think go either way between Bobby or Theory. Depends. If you want to have a more babyface-ish kind of U.S. champion, since Roman's are on SmackDown, then you would have Bobby win.
I'm not feeling Bobby as a babyface, man. I'm not feeling that.
He's not like it's kind of weird. I mean, it's because he's like just a big ass kicker, right?
That's what I'm saying. He should be a tweener.
Yeah, because that always it eventually people have always eventually start cheering for it regardless.
Yeah,
because look, I mean, wrestling fans like big jacked dudes who beat the shit out of people.
This whole thing is you see him come down the aisle and he's like kissing babies and like giving dabs and like that's not Bobby Lashley. I know. I don't remember seeing him in that way.
Yeah.
I don't think. Look, I think 3 wins the match though, but I don't think Bobby eats the pin.
No, I think they're gonna. Yeah, I think Bronson Reed takes the pin or some kind of
Yeah,
way, and because he's going to Raw. So
yeah. How about Seth Rollins against Omos?
this is another one.
Strangely intrigued. So look, Omos has not been the most popular guy in terms of matches, of course, but Omos in the last 2 pay-per-views have faced Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. Clearly, creative see something in this guy.
Yeah, and it's just, I guess. Well, we're gonna find out because I mean, almost is kind of at a point where he's got to win something here because he lost to Brock, he lost to Braun, and right. I mean, you can't have him keep losing. He's got to beat somebody, but beating Seth Rollins, I mean that's where it's kind of like, well, like it's hard to imagine him beating Seth Rollins,
Yeah.
but he's got to beat somebody. Um,
I mean, I liked how the match against Brock at WrestleMania. I thought was done correctly.
oh yeah, oh no,
Done
I
well.
thought that was. I mean, it was exactly what it needed to be, and yeah, I think no, I think they could have gone another minute or two,
Yeah.
but what they did was exactly what they needed to do, and
He looked strong. Omos looked strong in the end.
yeah, I mean he threw. Nobody's just tossed Brock around like that.
Yeah. Nobody. I don't know. So you have Omos as one. You think Seth's gonna take his?
I'm going to pick Omos because he's got to win something.
Yeah. I think Omos wins by. Omos wins. I think MVP gets involved probably.
Yeah,
I mean, because Seth's taking on losses too, though. I mean, other than
yeah.
WrestleMania, taking on the losses last year or so. So, all right, next one we have the I think it's the SmackDown Women's Championship between Rhea Ripley and Zelina Vega. Again, another women's title match that
Yeah.
filler. Like Rhea's not losing this match.
No, and honestly, look, it's going to be competitive because they're in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, for her, for Zelina.
But I mean, this is a match you get on TV, and yeah, I mean, this is a TV match, and I mean, I know why they're putting it on pay per view, but this is a TV match, and yeah, there's no scenario.
This has got to be a bridge to something else, obviously.
I don't well because Rhea's going to Raw and Zena's going to be on SmackDown, so
Right.
I think it's just they're in Puerto Rico. They're doing a solid for Zelina. I think just giving her a title match, and it'll be more competitive probably than it would have been under any other circumstance.
Yeah.
I think that's just all it is, really, because Rhea's going over to Raw after this. So
Yeah. Swap the titles. Swap
yeah,
them with Bianca.
yeah.
How lame.
I mean, it is, and I mean, it's just like book your show better so that you don't have to do it.
Right, exactly. All right, Cody Rhodes against Brock Lesnar. This is the start of the Cody Rhodes comeback tour.
Man,
I love that. I love that they made this the first feud for Cody on the way back to meet Roman at some point.
Yeah, because that should. I mean, any people who had doubt that how they where Cody stands, they wouldn't put him in a feud with Brock.
Yeah,
right. I mean, if they thought if they were and if they got Brock to work a pay per view immediately after WrestleMania. Right. I mean, which is unheard of.
Yeah, because I'm saying it makes sense. Yeah.
Man, this is the one where I honestly don't know because I mean because if this is Cody's kind of adversity story, then this could just be this could be just another kind of bump on the road here.
My mindset is that because I think you can get another few months out of this feud. I feel like this is a good enough feud to get at least to Money in the Bank, maybe possibly SummerSlam, possibly. And if you do that, I think that one of the things you need to consider here is maybe doing a double DQ.
Yeah, because because it's funny because when we do our predictions, um, we always end up calling for like one match to be that way, and it never seems to happen.
Yeah.
Um, Personally, I think I don't know. I don't understand why so many people, in the internet wrestling community are so adverse to matches ever ending on a DQ. It's if you're going to do another match between the two people, then it's a device you use to just keep things going.
It's about storytelling at the end of the day.
Yeah, and because otherwise, like you know, just like having having Cody beat Seth 3 times in a row last year was just why do that? I mean, if you, to
But
me, if you,
it did make sense though, because I mean, based on the story, I mean, we could imagine Cody getting hurt for
yeah,
8 months, but Cody probably would have been end up being world champion either at SummerSlam or you know at WrestleMania. Had Cody had the build 1 year build to Roman instead of like the 3 matches with Seth. He's out for 8 months, comes back Royal Rumble, and then he has Roman again.
yeah. So I legit don't know how this is going to go. I mean there are reasons there are good reasons to go either way with it.
Yeah.
Since I got to pick somebody here, um, I'm going to pick Brock.
Okay. Okay. It's not bad. And finally, I think this is the other maybe the main event of whatever it is. 6-man tag team match between Matt Riddle, KO, and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Bloodline. Of course, that's Solo Sokoa, Jay Uso, and Jimmy Uso. The Usos with Paul Heyman
I
in the
think
corner.
I think Riddle, KO, and Sammy are going to win this because this is going to continue the kind of downward spiral.
Yeah.
And so I think the real question here is Solo going to screw them during the match or after? I mean, because I think at some point Roman is going to put the hit out on both of them. And look, I mean, it looked like it might have happened. I think that's where we're headed.
Question is when is that
Yeah,
trigger
when
pulled?
exactly? Does it happen here? Does it happen later? It's definitely happening. Because you know, it's gonna be like Order 66 in Revenge of the Sith. I think
Yeah.
it's just a matter of when is it coming.
Yeah.
That's all. That's does it come here? Does it come later? But it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go Riddle and Sammy and KO. Um, do you think Sammy and KO stay tag champs for a while? You think they?
Man, I mean, well, I felt personally like the tag team titles were more stagnant, being unified than the world and universal titles.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a long history of having one main champion for the wrestling company, whatever wrestling company it is.
Yeah.
But for their roster and to have as many teams as they have and the brand split and all that, um, basically it's been one big. It's just you have all these teams kind of spinning their wheels, and then because you knew Jimmy, especially once it became clear that Jimmy and Jay weren't going to lose until WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a pretty long stretch where, okay, well, you knew whoever they wrestled this time had no chance of winning, and then all the other teams just kind of spinning their wheels. Um, so, well, I think they are now, but yeah, I really like for them to find some way to split those titles up because it's because well, they got drafted to Raw,
Yeah.
and then so just I mean, having the same situation with a different team, I think it still continues to be counterproductive, and because then you got again teams that are going to be spinning their wheels, waiting for their turn to lose to Sammy and Kevin. I mean,
yeah. I think it'll be a good show. I don't expect much. I think that the only match that stand out in terms of like highlights for me is from a preliminary aspect is obviously the street fight. Bad Bunny's been fantastic. Anytime Bad Bunny's involved in anything, he's been really, really cool. And of course Cody and Brock.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna see how those two work together.
Because I guess to me, I think it'll be a good show, but it's probably going to be one of those that you may never go back and watch again.
Yeah. It'll end up being a 2023 filler pay-per-view / premium live event. It won't stand out, but part of the journey. Of where we're going to. I'll be watching no matter what. I mean, I'll have the playoffs on obviously, but I'll be watching definitely. You know what I mean? So, all right, buddy, plug away. Anything you want to plug away? Here we go.
Yeah. So, as always, every week you can hear me, DJ, and Jason on Mindless Wrestling Podcast, and actually we're doing 2 episodes this week because we couldn't record. Well, we didn't record tonight like we usually do because I was at Dynamite, and then Jason had some things going on also. So
you guys didn't record this week?
Well, DJ and I did. We recorded last night. We talked about the draft.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So now tomorrow night, the 3 of us will be together. We're going to talk about Backlash. So that's where you can find me normally. And then, of course, when I do get around to publishing new episodes, there's my own show, the Rob the Genius podcast.
Yeah, you're going bi-weekly now these days, bud.
Yeah, it's pretty much bi-weekly now.
Yeah.
And that's been better. Just because because it's usually just a one-man show, and I got to the point where I felt like, well, I've said everything I have to say, outside of just talking about current events. So
yeah,
I just don't want to keep repeating myself.
It's funny. I can't see every time I think I'm gonna hit a wall, I always find something to talk about.
Yeah, and so so now I do a lot more reacting to what's going on now, and but I've found that it's just I can do a better version. I feel like I do what I feel like is a better version of that if I take a little more time to do each episode.
Right.
And I think if you want to, I do write things occasionally. I have a website, robsagenius.com. So do go there and check that out.
Notice a theme here. It's a genius. Notice a theme.
Well, it's funny because all right, well, it's and it's kind of it's half joke, half serious.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, I was always one of the smart kids growing up, but it's also kind of a rib at the same time.
Yeah,
and also it's because one of my favorite member of the Wu-Tang Clan was the Genius.
Right?
Yes. So it's a kind of a mashup of a couple of different things.
I like it. It's great. A genius. So thank you, man. As always. That's awesome.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me once again.
Of course.